Have you ever wanted to discover what's missing in your life? Metaphysics is available to all and is part of your life even if you don't know it. Welcome to Metaphysics, a view through the veil with Barb Crowley. Together we'll explore the mysteries behind metaphysics and how to use it to have a deeper understanding and advantage in life. And now here's your host, Barb Crowley.
Hi, this is Barb Crowley, and welcome to Metaphysics, a view through the veil. Today we're talking to Ellen Dee Davidson. She lives in the redwoods of Northern California, where she has fallen in love with the ancient trees. Her book, Sacred Forest Bathing, transmits some of the beauty, healing, and expanded perception Ellen has discovered in the forest. Today we're talking about the healing power of ancient trees and wild places. Ellen, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm glad
Oh, thank you
you're
for
here.
having me.
We are in dire need of healing from the earth, I think. Now, I have to say, I live in Denver, which should be a natural paradise, really. I mean, I've got all these national, federal lands around me, state lands, beautiful, beautiful vegetation, beautiful mountains. And yet I feel trapped in a city with not a lot of trees. you know? So, but let me back up a little bit and let's start with you. You said it healed you. What was wrong?
After my first daughter was born, she was really colicky and she never let me sleep. And I sort of forgot how. I lost the
Mm.
ability, and then that led to a cascade of symptoms. I had fibromyalgia, couldn't turn my neck, chronic
Ooh.
fatigue, became chemically sensitive. So I was half-mast for a long time where I just didn't feel all the way well. And I tried everything from acupuncture, hypnotherapy, went to counselors and tried some meds that didn't help. Um, and then 15 years down the line, I was meditating with Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist group, and the Lama said to us, follow the juice. And by that, he meant do what enlivens you and brings you joy. And so it coincided with my youngest daughter heading off to college. So I had a little more time than I was used to having. So on my free days, I started playing a game with myself of waking up and saying, what do I want to do today?
Mm-hmm.
Not what should I do, not what do I have to do, what do I want to do today? And it was go to the forest. And it kept being go to the forest. I'd never heard of forest bathing back then or nature therapy or that had healing properties, which it does, and science has proven. I hadn't heard any of that, but I did do that. And slowly, gradually, I started noticing I was sleeping better. I could turn my neck. I was in a good mood most of the time. I felt better. I was happy. I had that feeling we have when we're kids and we're so excited about life to wake up for the new day.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
hadn't had that for a while. I was waking up to my lists, my to-do lists.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. How far away is a forest from you?
Well, my odyssey began before I started going to the forest because there's an old growth redwood in my backyard and a
Wow.
creek. And when I moved to this house 32 years ago, that tree started visiting me in dreams and teaching me. And I didn't believe any of that. My
Mm-hmm.
dad was a mathematician. I grew up with science as God. And to me, that was completely out of my realm of reality that a tree could be communicating with me in my
Mm-hmm.
dreams. It still happens, but it went on for years.
What was it saying?
It was showing me, I would see the tree in the dreams and it would show me all kinds of things. It would show me fungi. And this is before Suzanne Simard and all those scientists came out with the mycorrhizal fungal wood wide web and the network of intelligence that trees communicate through the fungi. But I would see all these different mushrooms and filaments, it also showed me flows of energy coming down cosmically from the top of the tree, going into the earth and spreading out in little webbed lines of light. And I could see that the radius of energetic influence from this tree was a quarter to a half a mile around from one tree.
Hmm. Wow.
And so I was being taught things like that, but I didn't believe them. I was into my dreams. I had taken a class on dreams in college and wrote them down at night. So I'd try
Hmm.
and analyze these dreams with the tree. Oh, the tree represents the part of me that is blah, blah, blah. It
Right.
wasn't. The tree, somehow there was a communication happening, which is remains mysterious to me.
Hmm. So the tree was just the tree talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then if you didn't believe in, or maybe you did, but weren't active with it, in an energy like that, that all was connected,
I
you
had
know.
no idea. It
Hmm.
didn't fit any frame of reference I had encountered or been taught. Um, so yeah, so it just seemed like, why is this tree in my dreams all the time? I was mystified. Then about, 15, maybe 13 years later, that's when I started going all the time as much as I could. So
Hmm.
2 or 3 days a week and camping in the summer and being with the ancient redwoods. And it expanded from there
Hmm.
into healing, but also into mystical experiences. I started
Before
understanding.
women, before we get into that, I want to know, at what point did you realize that the tree was not a symbol, really, and that it was actually the tree talking to you? How long did that
Yeah.
take? Because you were looking at, oh, it's part of me, it's part of, you know,
Well, I
how did that realization
I had a
come?
dual thing going on. Intellectually, I didn't believe it, but
Hmm.
gut knowing emotionally, I did. So I was doing two things at once for a long time, invalidating my perceptions. Um, but when the scientists started coming out, and that's only been recently, it's been the past
I
maybe
was going to
eight
say,
years
yeah.
that I started reading things. Monica Gagliano is a scientist, PhD. I think she's a botanist, but she was called in a dream by a tree in the Amazon all the way. I
Mhm.
think she was in Australia. She's Italian, but she was in Australia. So I started running into books that were talking about things that were similar to what I was experiencing. And I was, oh, I'm not the only one.
Right.
And
Can you
maybe this
imagine
is real.
the frustration of the tree trying trying to
Well,
communicate to you and you're like clueless?
absolutely. I think the whole earth is frustrated with the density of human beings right now because
Yeah.
the earth is reaching out to us to restore.
Hmm.
And we are part of that nature, and we could collaborate on
Hmm.
creating a really
Honestly, if
beautiful,
there was any honor, of the earth, and people do think there is, but just the number of people. But as I
that
said to you
too.
before we came on, I'm not volunteering to lighten the load. So,
Yeah, right. None of us are.
yeah, exactly. So I'm sorry I interrupted you. So you started to go to become to commune more with nature, actually to go out into the redwoods and to go camping and started to have mystical experiences.
Part of it was, and, and listeners don't have to do it alone, but it is important to unplug from your devices and be quiet if you're with
Mhm.
other people. But part of it for me was my husband would go sometimes, and I had two best friends that would go with me sometimes, but nobody wanted to go as much as I did. So I
Mhm.
started going alone.
Yeah,
And as a pretty intuitive, empathic, sensitive person, I was completely oblivious to how much I was running other people's,
energy.
even their
Yeah.
thoughts, their energy, their moods, their emotions. I wasn't even me. I didn't know what me was.
Hmm.
And so when I went alone, and beauty is so enchanting. She lures us into presence, and nature is exquisitely beautiful in myriad ways. And
But
so,
how do
yes,
you get out there alone? We talked again before we came on. At Rocky Mountain National Park here in Colorado, you have to have a reservation to go in. And Rocky Mountain National Park is huge, but there are that many, it's that crowded. So, how can you be out there alone?
I know all the solitude that I've been blessed with does feel somewhat vanishing. COVID, for one thing, got more people interested in
Hmm.
going to the parks because it was the only
True.
thing we could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I've noticed it's a lot more crowded. I started going regularly 17, almost 18 years ago. And at that time, there weren't nearly as many people out there. I do try and find little places, and I know some trails, and it's not as crowded here yet as
Hmm.
Denver would be, but it's much more crowded than it used to be. And solitude and that kind of deep quiet is precious. Plus, what I notice in the redwood forest is I go in the winter, and the winter's much less crowded because it's
Right.
rainy and drizzly and blah, blah, blah. But when I'm there and no one has been through for a while, maybe a week or something, there is a palpable field. It's quite tangible of energy that builds up. And it sort of washes through my own personal auric field, clears me and connects me to the larger intelligence.
Hmm.
And so, yes, solitude is precious. I think a couple things could happen. One, we could have an ethic of going to nature reverently, the way we would be to a holy cathedral, and not make so much noise so people could tune in more easily, even with other people there. And the other thing is finding those little places that might not be quite as spectacular, but are quieter, off the beaten track.
Hmm.
Because I'm sure they exist in the Rocky Mountain National Park,
I'm
but
sure they do. Yeah.
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 So you could find them. You might have to go a little off trail, and then you have to worry about getting lost too.
I'm a city kid, born and bred. I'm a city kid, so I go into the woods like that, and it is a foreign. It's like it might as well be Mars. It is foreign to me as far as finding my way back. Or I remember one time here, I went to go on a hike, and I went to go in to, just a trail that I found somewhere. And there was a guy sitting at the beginning of the trail, and he said, "Well, you're going in there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're going in alone?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you have a firearm?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, I wouldn't suggest it." And at that time, again, I'm going back 20 years, and a number of people in Denver said, "You don't go into the woods without, a protection." And
I've
this
had a
is
lot of
wildlife.
people.
But they killed it. He killed it right there. He killed it. And he could have been a crazy man, but he killed it. It was like, oh my God.
He
I
put
know.
fear into you, and
Sure.
healthy caution is a good thing, but truly the most dangerous part of my day is the drive up there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the most, I have to drive half an hour either north or south because we only have 5% of the old growth redwoods left
Oh my
at all
God.
in
See,
the
I
world.
saw him north of San Francisco.
Yeah.
I went into the redwood forest, and it's like Jurassic Park. It is just overwhelming. It is so beautiful and so big. That it was just amazing. And I was there 1980.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they're still there, but
They are. They're
yeah.
here, but what was left from the major logging of the 19th century is 5%. And
Wow.
so, and all of those were fought for a lot by women who would, those 19th century women actually chained themselves to the trees and
Wow.
did all kinds of, yeah. So,
And now they realize what old old forest, what it gives to the planet, what it does for the planet. Have you read about that or?
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you want
yeah.
to address that?
Well,
I can't. I know
the
I've read
old
it, but I
the
can't.
older trees actually convey a lot of information that helps the younger trees stay alive. And it's really fascinating. Like a forest, when a big old tree is logged, they'll keep that stump alive sometimes for 200 or 300 years. They can keep
Wow.
those stumps, they feed it sugars and nutrients, which means they're getting something back. And it's probably information about how to survive various conditions that come up. The redwoods here on the coast can be 2 or 3 thousand years old, and the sequoias that are up in the mountains can actually be 5,000 years old. So
Wow.
those trees were here when the dinosaurs were here, which
Hmm.
is hard to wrap our minds around.
It is, yeah. Dinosaurs to most of us are fantasy things. You
Yeah,
know,
they are
I
to
know.
me, you know.
Yeah.
So there I am, and but what it does to me is it makes me feel when I'm in an intact forest that's never been harmed, it's been allowed to grow its own wild ways for thousands of years. There's a sense of wholeness and being intact. And somehow that's reminding the cells and the body intelligence within me of what it feels like to be whole.
Mm,
And I think that's a gift, wild places. It doesn't have to just be for us, but unspoiled wild places can give us, they can remind, because our bodies still know. Our bodies pick up trillions of bits of information a second. We get a few that make it to our consciousness.
right.
So the body intelligence, and we can develop that more the by coming into our senses. And when we're outside in nature in a beautiful place, our senses are act actively stimulated. We smell
Mm,
fragrances. We see all the fractal, curvy beauty. We hear maybe the birds, and that's also proven to help us calm down, lower cortisol, probably because when birds stop singing, they go silent when there's danger. So humans probably evolved to understand that bird song
hmm.
implies safety.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense. Yeah, that
Hmm.
would make sense.
Plus, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So when you started to go in, you started to realize that your sleep was better and you could turn your neck and all of this. Did you take it as just the exercise of hiking or that it was the forest or how did you
I
realize you were
didn't
being
take it
healed?
as just the exercise of hiking. The first time I have a tree I named Summer Tree because I can only get there. I have to cross a they call it a creek, but it's a river. I have to
Mhm.
cross a river and it's too hard to cross in the winter. So for about 6 months of the year, I can access this tree and it's about 4 miles down the trail. So the first time that I sat with that tree, I was with a friend of mine who meditates, and we had been doing these Vajrayana Buddhist meditations together. And we went and we were sitting by this beautiful tree in this flat clearing and a creek nearby, watching herons. And we ate our lunch. And then she said, maybe we should try meditating here. And I had never tried to meditate with a tree before, but I said, sure.
After those dreams, I'm surprised.
It just didn't occur to me. And
Yeah.
I was newer to meditation. She was the one that had invited me into this group, and I'd sort of stumbled into it.
Hmm.
And we sat, and then I literally, I'm not kidding, I'm not making this up. I heard a voice after I was all calm and in a place of stillness and presence. I hear this voice, and it says, "Come back." And
Yeah.
my eyes flew open, and I said, "Annette, did you just tell me to come back?"
Mm.
No, I didn't say anything. Is there anybody around? No, there was nobody around. Now, I don't think the tree can actually speak English, and I don't think the tree said, come back. But I think there was a message that meant that went through my neuro system and got
Mhm.
translated into those words I heard. And so I thought, oh, I have to come back. I thought I was coming back one time. I
Yeah.
didn't know why I was coming back. I was mystified, but and that's when my odyssey of going alone began because I couldn't find anybody that would go with me. My husband's a gardener. He was busy gardening. Everybody
Hmm.
was busy. People are
Doing
so
their
busy.
thing. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
So everyone was busy, so I said, okay, I'm going to brave it. I have poles. I have a bear bell. I don't bring a gun. I have over the years run into 5 mountain lions, a bunch of black bears, and the scariest thing was the rutting elk.
Hmm. That's
But
the one
they,
thing here that they say, be careful
oh,
of
when
elk.
they're in
Yeah.
rut, oh,
Yeah.
and they have
Yeah.
those huge racks of antlers.
And they're
But
pissy. They get pissy. You
oh
know?
yeah,
Yeah. You know, I
yeah.
mean, a lot of other things will watch you or go the other way. What? No, no, no. They get pissy. They, if something ticks them off, you're probably going to die.
Well, my friend, a different friend, the other friend that I went with a lot, Allegra, who wrote the foreword to the book, and I had been on an 8 mile hike, and we were half a mile from this loop back to the car. We were talking about what we were going to eat
Hmm.
because we were
Yeah.
tired and
Yeah.
hungry from the hike. And this elk bugles, and then this other alpha elk with the huge rack of horn comes
Hmm.
charging up at us. And he wouldn't let us. We tried to cross through these lagoons, wade, and go out by the coast and walk way around, give them a wide berth, and come back on the beach. He was having none of it. He
Yeah.
herded us. We had to
That's what I
walk
mean
the
about
whole
pissy.
eight
They get
miles
really
back.
attached. Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
it got dark, and our flashlights lost battery, and then we're sitting in the dark thinking we were going to have to sit there all night. But I always tell my husband where I am, and so it's pretty dark and we're cold and we're hungry and we're tired and we're out of everything. And we're sitting there thinking, oh, we can't even take turns. We had to talk because we didn't want the animals like the trails too, and we didn't want
Hmm.
one to stumble on us in the dark. So
Right.
we're getting ready to spend the whole night sitting there when my husband arrived with 3 flashlights. And at first we thought we were having some mystical experience. We see these little fairy lights bobbing up the and we're like, do you see that? I see that. And then it turned
Yeah.
out to be my husband and we were rescued. So that was
Oh,
nice.
thank God for that.
I tell that story in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but
Thank
yeah, the
God for
elk.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
how far did he have to hike in to get you?
we were lucky because they usually close the gate to the parking lot, and that would have added miles to his hike. But I guess they saw my car there, so the park rangers left it open.
Uh-huh.
And then it was sketchy service out there, but I tried to shoot off a text to my daughter. My husband never looks at his phone, so I knew he wouldn't get it. It was Sunday night and he likes to watch football, so he was, watching football. He wasn't looking at the phone. So I shot it to my daughter, but I didn't know she'd gotten it because he would have walked the other. We always do the loop from the opposite direction, so then he would have walked and he would have had to go the whole 7 miles. But since he did get the text. He only had to go about a mile.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was good.
yeah. He was
Yeah.
still annoyed. He was like, "How come you didn't bring your flashlight?" But he was
Yeah.
there, so I
Yeah.
didn't care.
Right.
You know,
You were lucky though. That would have been a cold night. Not
it
a
would have been a
dangerous,
cold
but a
night.
cold night. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also lucky because a lot of times I'm by myself, and things are a lot scarier when you're alone than when you have a
I know.
companion.
That's what I was telling you, the where the guy just killed it for me. You know,
Yeah,
I was
well,
like,
he did,
geez.
but I never bring a gun, and people tell me
Hmm.
that all the
I
time.
don't I
I
don't
would
have
shoot my
history
foot.
with
I don't know how
guns.
to use a gun.
Exactly. I don't have history with guns. I come from the New York metro area. We really don't do guns the way the rest of the country do. Where they've grown up with guns and they're used to them. We're
Yeah.
not. We're not at all. It's
Yeah,
just a foreign
so
thing
I
to us.
just
Yeah.
and plus, I mean, a lot of my protection out there, to be honest, is elf and fairy magic, and they're kind of allergic to guns. So I would
Hmm.
lose something that does protect me,
Right.
which is
Right.
sort of a frequency type of protection and a
Hmm.
harmony. And the other way I protect myself, I do bring pepper spray. I've never used it. I have a
Right.
bear bell, so the animals don't look for me with the bear bell, they hide. And
Hmm.
sometimes if I feel like there's somebody around that I don't I'm too scared to meet, I sing. And it's been great because nobody's ever wanted me to sing, but there's nobody around, so I get to wail away.
Right.
It's fun.
Okay. Yeah. I've had that singing save me a couple times, and a lot of it is because I can't sing. And I'll sing, at the top of my lungs, I'll sing, and I can't sing, so I look like a crazy woman. Nobody
Yeah.
goes near a crazy woman. I know, it's kind of weird. But
It works though.
yeah. So how, a lot of people are listening to this and thinking, oh, well, I'd love to do that, but I have to go to work. I have to, clean the house. I have to, everybody has so many things on them that they have to do that. And, how do you get past that?
That's a great question. And I have a few things I want to say to that. One is the Japanese have been studying forest bathing now for a while. They call
Hmm.
it Shinrin Yoku, and they have discovered that a day or two spent in a forest will give benefits that last for 30 days. So this
Wow.
doesn't take a ton of time.
Yeah.
Diana Beresford Kroger, who wrote To Speak for the Trees, and she's a scientist that studies forests, and Our Green Heart, I think that's the title, or Our Global Green Heart, says that trees put out aerosols, phytoncides, and terpenes, especially firs and pines and spruce.
Hmm.
And when they're out gassing these aerosols that help protect them from rot and insects and fires too, and we breathe that in, it prevents cancer and viruses and boosts our immune systems hugely. So it's not a huge time investment.
Hmm.
One day in a month, it could
Right.
just be and I also am an advocate of people bonding with places close to where they live. It doesn't all have to be, I mean, we all have our bucket list of places we dream of seeing, and that's
Hmm.
fine.
Right.
But what we're also starving for is a more intimate connection with nature that all of our ancestors knew. But they knew it in deserts and forests and rainforests and oceans and rivers and lakes and mountains. It wasn't one type of environment. Every type of environment will, I believe, give nature therapy. I've only read studies now about blue spaces like oceans, lakes, waterfalls. Those do it. They
Hmm.
lower cortisol, they boost moods and lower blood pressure and speed wound healing, all these wonderful
And aren't they
benefits.
ionized or something like
Hmm.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the positive ion,
Which is why
negative ions.
people put fountains in, they used to do it in office buildings and all. You'd go in and there'd
Hmm.
be a fountain in the middle of their lobby, to
Yeah.
offset, but they don't do it anymore. I don't see it anymore, maybe, you
Well,
know.
so, yeah. Well, water is profoundly soothing and healing. And,
Hmm.
I was just reading that a lot of the water on the planet didn't originate on our planet. It came from asteroids. But now I stumbled on something new. Scientists are discovering deep in the towards the core of the earth, there's some kind of spongy mineral that actually absorbs water like a sponge, and that's another source of water, a big source potentially on
But
the
is it
planet.
clean? Because underneath the United States, there's a huge aquifer. Um, and it goes through Colorado into Nebraska. This is what I've heard, So, but also it's not drinkable water.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That's
Hmm.
what I was told by some geologists. But we're in the world of, is that true? Is that
Yeah.
true?
Well, I know some of the aquifers are almost artesian. They're so good. And
Right.
Arizona has some beautiful water, but it's dropping fast
Hmm.
in those same.
Well, Tucson has pumped a lot of their water out and now has spots
Yeah,
that just fall in because they don't
yeah.
have the support of the water. but they've had
Yeah.
to go to that for the population,
Yeah.
figuring. And, you go back 100 years, we thought this was all unlimited. I mean,
Well, that's the thing. The
yeah.
settlers that came to this country
Hmm.
never thought that resources were finite and
Right.
I really feel like as we tend and befriend and restore various ecologies, at the same time, we will be healing ourselves.
Hmm.
They're
Right.
related, and we can do this, and we could be guided by the intelligence of the earth, which is so much. We're part of that, but we aren't the whole of it.
We're a minor part, I would think. When you talk
Yeah,
about the trees, I've read a little bit about the communication between the trees and the root system communication and all of that. And you look at that and think, oh my God, I'm like, a little fly here. you
right.
know,
Well, I mean, the
stupid
trees were
fly
on the
too.
planet. The greenery, the plants and the trees have been on the planet, I think, around 400 million years. And
Wow.
Homo sapiens, what are we, three?
I have no
Hundred
idea.
thousand. We're not very
Yeah.
much. I mean, 6 million at the most if you count every type of human ever.
Hmm.
So
Well, I don't
compared to
even
400
believe they
million.
know, to be honest. They keep coming up
Yeah,
with, oh my God, we thought they were here, man was here, 100,000 years. I'm making that up, obviously. And here we've got this thing that's showing us that somebody was here 1 million years ago.
I
It's
know.
like, duh.
I
Duh.
know.
I know.
But the communication is incredible. I mean, the in order for trees and plants to get a grip on land, that it required the fungi, the mycelium, and
Hmm.
that network, the trees will photosynthesize and feed sugars into the mycelium, and then the mycelium give the trees nutrients like phosphorus that they need
Hmm.
to grow, and then connect them with each other. So one tree can ask another tree for something it needs through this fungal network, which is amazing. And then trees can do things like Douglas firs. When one Douglas fir has a bark beetle or something attacking, puts out aerosols that tell the other trees to close down their bark, like shutting your
Right.
pores down or something. It's just amazing.
It is amazing. Unfortunately, up here, we had a beetle kill 20 years ago. I mean, that really decimated a lot of the trees. But that
Yeah,
was climate change. We weren't getting cold enough long enough to kill
yeah,
them off, you know.
right.
So how are trees adjusting to the new climate?
Well, this is interesting because I'm friends with Archangel Ancient Tree Archive, and
Mhm.
they're the first people that learned how to clone the really old trees. Fruit trees have been cloned, but nobody'd ever cloned genetically identical old trees. And they do something called assisted migration.
Mhm.
And I might not be into that if it weren't for climate change, but the trees aren't going to be able to move to colder and higher elevation climates fast enough.
Right.
And they just did a planting from the stag sequoia that burned down, the waterfall sequoia in Detroit. And
Wow.
they will probably thrive there and last into the future. So that's one thing. I think we need to also strategically plant trees bearing in mind the warming climate and maybe with native species, but native species on the colder edge. So we do have oaks growing here, for example.
Hmm.
And as it gets warmer here, we might have more oaks growing here because they do better in a warmer climate. And the redwoods might be moving a little bit north with
Oh,
help.
wow.
Because we do have fires now in Santa Cruz. They
Well,
did have
the
fires
fires in
and
Colorado too. And what is that about? I mean, where the trees, well, a lot of it's the fires. Originally, we were all looking at the beetle kill. So there's a lot of dead trees,
I
you
know.
know.
I walk through them in the Trinity Alps. We have mountains inland, nothing like the Rockies, but we do have a little range inland.
Hmm.
And I walk sometimes a whole slope of pine forest is dead.
Yeah, yeah. How
It's the
come they
saddest
couldn't
thing.
save themselves?
Well, yeah, adaptation. I mean, this is happening fast.
Hmm.
For the last 7 years, I've adjusted where I go in the summer around fires, and I never had to. I grew up in
Right.
California, never had to do that. Now we have a season we call fire season. We didn't have
I
that. We
know.
had some fires after Labor Day, and they were usually out by Halloween.
Hmm. Right. And now there is no fire season. It's all year round.
Well, yeah, and
Worse. Yeah.
so yeah, but part of one of the big solutions to climate change is reforesting. It's preserving the
Hmm.
forests we have, it's planting new forests strategically with thought. We have to be, you can't plant trees that need lots of water in places that don't
That
have
are
water. We
dry.
have to
Yeah.
think. But
Yeah.
those are really valid. And also the phytoplankton puts out a tremendous amount of oxygen. So, um,
What are the phytoplankton?
in the
I,
ocean,
oh,
the
okay.
little,
I'm
yeah,
thinking, I think I know, but let me ask
yeah,
straight out.
the
Yeah.
little, yeah, and they're at the
Mhm.
bottom, close to the bottom of the food chain too, so they keep a lot of life happening in the
Right.
sea, plus putting out tremendous amounts of oxygen for all of us. So we know a lot now, and this has been said before, where we're lacking is the political will,
No,
because
I know. I
short-term
know.
profit versus long-term survival.
Right. And why are we still using trees for paper?
I
You
know we
know,
could use bamboo, it grows really
we could use
fast.
bamboo, we could use
Hemp,
hemp, you know,
yeah.
there are a lot of things we can use. I don't know as much about bamboo, but hemp cleans the water, the air.
Mm.
Bamboo is invasive, you know,
Yeah, there's
amazingly
some
invasive.
species that are
Yeah.
and some that aren't, but yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
But we have alternatives, and
Hmm.
but what happens is inertia and vested interests. We get on a
Right.
certain trajectory and off we go.
Yeah, I know. And that's why they went from hemp. They were using hemp before, and that's why they went to it was Hearst. Hearst owned the forests, the forested land. And it was he wanted his trees and his profit margin, you know, to build to make his paper is what it came down to, you know. So
Yeah.
he helped get rid of hemp for it. And
What
hemp
I would
is,
like
you
to
know,
add here to the conversation, though, is what I discovered is we don't even know what we're losing,
I
because
know.
these redwood trees, I didn't think. Now I know why Buddha became enlightened after he sat under the Bodhi tree for 49 days. It wasn't just that he sat, the trees help. Their bioelectric systems help regulate, calm, and open our nervous systems if we spend time in their
Hmm.
presence. And that's just the beginning. We're in our infancy of discovering what I mean, maybe our ancient ancestors knew because they all evolved in wilder places. But for the modern human that's been disconnected for a few generations, we are just finding out the treasure
Hmm.
and how important. And we haven't even begun to explore the capacity of our human intelligence combined with nature intelligence. While we're all going down the rabbit hole of AI, which is an extrapolation from human intelligence, it's a trajectory that we invented it, and now we're diving more deeply into it. But when we go into nature intelligence, it's bigger than we are. We didn't invent nature. And then
Right.
we can expand into realms that we don't know what they are
Hmm.
yet.
Right. Right.
So we need to preserve these treasures so that we can explore our potential and our potential in connected and interconnected.
Hmm. What do you
Yeah.
think is happening? Because before we got on, I talked about having lost internet for a week. And in that time, it took a couple days, you know, and then I started to feel a difference in my house. And it's hard to explain it. It's calmer. it's like, well, this is my house now. This is really what it feels like. And it was also quieter. It's the only word I have, but internet doesn't make noise, so it's the wrong word, but there is no other word. It was quieter. And then
Energetically quieter.
yeah, yeah. And then when I got internet back, it was like an electrical field going through my body. And you can I tried to turn off the modem, and you really can't do that because I was thinking, well, I'm going to turn this off and just use it when I need it. And you can't do it. So, now I have a standalone house, but people talk about living in an apartment building where they're getting this from everybody, you know.
Yeah.
So, with this being worldwide, this electrical field that now is enveloping the world, what I believe is enveloping the world,
Yeah.
what do you think it's doing to the trees?
Oh, yeah, I think they probably are experiencing it too. Um, Actually, I used to go camping in the redwoods, I still do, but I used to have no phone service, so I would have an experience similar to the one you're describing,
Hmm.
where my whole nervous system would relax. There was a quiet and a
Right.
peace because we are being bombarded, and this stuff goes right through us, right
I
through our
know.
nervous systems.
I could
It's
feel it on the
constant.
bottom of my feet going through my whole body. It was like I've been electrified.
Yeah,
I was
I
really
feel it
surprised
too.
at it. Yeah.
And people that don't know they're feeling it are still feeling it in their bodies. It's just not coming to consciousness because, like I said, our bodies pick up an awful lot
Well,
more
not
than we
only that,
know.
but in the time, so that was, within the last 2 weeks. So within that time, I've already gotten used to it again and don't recognize it. So
Yeah.
it's that quickly to go to, you don't feel it.
Well, we're
It took
adapting,
not
but whether or
having
not
it.
that's a
Yeah,
healthy adaptation
I know.
is quite in question. As for the trees, I still feel profound refuge in the redwood trees. They seem to be almost like antennas,
Hmm.
connecting some kind of cosmic energy with the earth energy. And when I sit with them or walk quietly and peacefully, I become more balanced and soothed. And actually, my nervous system becomes regulated. That's the big word
Right.
everybody's using now. But I can really feel the difference there. And then sometimes I receive all kinds of wonderful information, and it feels very safe
Hmm.
to open up wide in a human setting is not safe for my nervous system, and I pick up way too much, and so I kind of shut down like we all sort of do. But
Right.
when I'm out in the forest, I feel very protected. The only things that come through are really beautiful and really divine. So sometimes I felt angelic presences or um, benevolent ancestors that wanted to get through to me for some reason, or
Hmm.
I felt a starry energy, not like aliens, but like intelligence.
Yeah.
I felt nature intelligences that, you know, it's fun to imagine fairies and gnomes and stuff, but that's not quite what I really actually perceive. It's more like the intelligence in the water, um,
Hmm.
sharing with me, or
Yeah.
the soil, and so there's other dimensions that open up, and my conversation becomes bigger with
Mhm.
more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually,
Um,
I want to add here, like this woman, Osprey Oriole Lake, wrote this beautiful book called The Story is in Our Bones. But she talks about how most of our ancestors used to make big decisions outside by what were called council trees.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was just going to ask you about, because I don't read much about, you go back 150 years and everybody lived in the woods, I mean, it
yeah,
was just, it was, although there were cities, but, there were just so many fewer people,
mhm.
and it wasn't plowed down. Nature wasn't plowed down. We lived in the woods. But I don't really remember, other than poets, people talking so much about communicating with the trees and the plant, the vegetation. But anyway, so I interrupted you telling me that they did.
I think they did, but also, and I've noticed the quality of my thoughts is just different. It feels like me, but the ideas I have, the visions I have, there's a subtle difference when I'm
Mhm.
out in nature than when I'm in the box of my house. There
Right,
just is. But I think it might be, you might have given your own answer before when you were saying after a while you got used to the internet again and you don't notice the difference.
right.
I think the reason we don't hear more about it from our ancestors is it just was. They didn't notice the difference. They never were cut off.
Hmm. But the communication, like you said, there were decision trees, or what did you call them?
Council trees.
Council trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of communication where they're really communicating with nature for, an enlightenment of they need counseling on, you know.
Yeah.
Um, we have lost that, and I have to say for the worse, because we're not making good decisions. You
No.
know, um,
Not if we want to survive and we want lots of other species to survive.
right, right. Or even in little things in our own lives, it's as if
Yeah.
we're idiots. Anyway, um, do you think a lot of the communing with nature is the lack of that internet electricity? That it's not being able to go deep into the woods once we walk away from our modems, our collective modems?
I'm a little confused about what exactly you're asking.
In other words, where I have become used to that electrified field.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I go into the woods, I don't have that electrified field around me.
Mm-hmm.
What I have is a lack of where I feel that calmness and that quietness again. And basically, I'm asking, is it the electrified field or is it the trees?
Well, trees have a bioelectric field, a bioenergetic field. The Institute of Heart Math has been doing a human tree interconnectivity study, and they recently had people send love and appreciation and awe and admiration towards these, I think, red maples.
Mm-hmm.
And they measured the field of the tree, and the energy field around the tree expanded quite a bit after
Wow.
people were showing this appreciation. So we're definitely in an energy field in the trees. Also, not everyone is unplugged in the trees. There's a lot of people walking through with their um, music
Wow.
blasting and completely earbuds in, and I think they're depriving themselves of part of the experience
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
listening to the natural sounds and really being present in the field that's there. But uh, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer. It's both.
Can forest bathing and nature therapy go on in a city, in a park?
I think so. I think we all need to start where we are, because we become disconnected and
Mhm.
our bodies love to get connected. Our bodies are nature. And so when we connect, our bodies calm down. And everyone needs soothing now. I don't know. I don't have a single friend that doesn't need some
Right.
soothing. And this will soothe us. And in order to do it repeatedly, it's good to have places that are close to home. So we could, for people that can't even get out of the house for whatever reason, uh, invite in some house plants and start a relationship. Pay attention to them, uh, and f- maybe a window box, grow something. I mean, that's a
Right. So you
connection.
can bring it into you.
Yeah, we need that intimacy and we need that connection with the elements. And when we grow a seed, that's the earth and it's the seed and it's the growth and the water and the light and all of this comes together. So there's that. And then if we have a park close by that we can visit regularly, a relationship will develop. We'll get to know a tree or whatever draws our attention, our desire. We can follow that desire to whatever beauty calls us, but to know it in all weathers and all seasons and
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
become intimate, because I think one of the reasons we're having a loneliness epidemic is we go from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, place to place to place, and even
Right.
sometimes person to person to person. And so we're missing that depth,
Mm-hmm.
and it's lonely. We're not seeing and we're not being seen. We're not listening, we're not being heard. And so this slowing down and pausing, and really, we can do it with a glass of water. We can get the cleanest water that's available to us wherever we are. And then we can really drink it consciously and gratefully for this amazing substance that gives us life.
Mm-hmm.
Or even a breath of air if we have clean air around us. And if we don't, where we don't have any
I'm
access,
in
we
Denver.
need
I
to
had to
make
go
it.
dead quiet there.
I know it's
It's
really
like,
difficult. And with
uh-uh.
fire season, I mean, with
Oh,
the way the
fire
fires are
season's
happening in the
terrible.
rest,
Yeah.
sometimes we go months and nobody's having clean air. It's a tragedy.
Right, right. And we get California, we get the smoke from California, Montana. It all
Canada.
just comes down to this bowl, which is Denver, and seems to sit here. It seems to come here.
So gratitude for every breath of clean air, and then everything we can do to preserve that, which includes the plants have given us oxygen. We breathe with the trees breathe with us. So where we can create more green places, and some cities have vertical gardens going straight up where they planted plants all the way up these high rises. Other cities, Detroit has a big community garden and anybody can go pick what they want to eat.
Wow,
So
that's great. I would
yeah, we
love
can,
that here.
yeah, we can make that. I mean, I think I a long time ago, I think I read an article about New York, the ghetto there pulled up some parking lots and planted a garden. But
Mm,
it's a while back and I can't remember all the details.
yeah.
But
What's
we
that
could
song they
make more.
paved over
Yeah.
and made a parking lot? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have too many parking lots. We need we could we have a lot of power um to collectively to change our lifestyle
Hmm.
and make it more beautiful, more comfortable and healthier for all of
Yeah.
us.
Our lack of knowledge is shocking to me. Again, I think we talked about this before we came on the show, where I thought in the 90s, when the level of anxiety started to go up, which now I'm thinking is a modem,
Yeah, right.
um, I thought that our bodies didn't know where our food supply was. And that was the anxiety that we were so, it's like the car not knowing where the gas station is. Our bodies didn't know where the food supply was. And there was
Yeah.
anxiety in our body because of that. But now I do look at it and think, oh, the modem, that's when the modem really came in. But
Well, actually, I think it's both. I mean, a lot
yeah.
of different contributing factors.
Hmm. Our lack of knowledge, and I mean this national, of how to grow something, what to grow, where to grow, what that is, is just astounding, really. From my generation doesn't have it. My parents' generation had some of it, and then the generation before that had it. But when you start to go back and look for those, I know organic farmers had tried to go back to books to see how do you do this? What do you plant with what? How do you do this? They couldn't find much written. It really,
Yeah.
and homesteaders, honestly, in the United States anyway, homesteaders that came out to the West in the 1800s. Most of them did not make it. We talk about the knowledge, but they could not make it. A lot of it is they didn't have the knowledge of how to make it
Mm-hmm.
work. So
Mm-hmm.
even then, there was a disconnect with
Mm-hmm.
nature. That just the knowledge not being there. I almost feel like nature should tell us. Oh,
Well,
don't put
actually,
that
I think,
there.
okay, no, that's a great point because that's my point. I think
Yeah,
nature
yeah.
does tell us, can tell us, and can teach us, and we can allow nature to be our guide. This is a nation of many, many, many immigrants. So
Hmm.
we're not deeply and long rooted on this land,
That's
unless
true.
you
I didn't think
unless
about
you're
that.
Native American. We're
Yeah.
not for the most part. But we're no longer rooted in wherever we came from either. So
Mm-hmm.
we can directly bond with wherever we are and really tune into that land and the intelligence of the elements and the elemental spirits on that land and be guided. I don't actually think our ancestors learned what plants were poisonous completely by trial and error. I think that
Yeah.
was part of it, but I think they also had highly developed intuitions and
Mhm.
they probably had dreams, they had community dreams that they shared, and they figured it out from from the relationship with nature as well as trial and error.
That makes more sense. Yeah. Because
Mhm.
I look out in my backyard and think, what's happening here?
And
You
it's
know?
so much more interconnected and intricate and
Mm-hmm.
unbelievably intelligent than we can that we're just scratching the surface of finding out all these things. Um, who was it that just, I think it's Monica Gagliano and and a team of Italian scientists just discovered that trees, I forget which kind, um, 2 to 3 hours before an eclipse synchronized their bioenergetic fields and they changed them significantly. And that's like, how did they even know an eclipse was going to come?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
How how like there's a level and we all know during tsunamis and stuff, the animals know to seek the high ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So how do they all
And
know
you
this
talk
and
about
why don't
birds
we?
going quiet. Yeah. And the
Yeah,
birds going quiet.
right. We
I
need
know.
to tune back in. We're missing a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or
And
we pretty much miss everything. That's what I mean. The knowledge is gone. It's I think at least 2 to 3 generations now. That knowledge is gone.
it is, but the earth still knows it, and our
Yeah.
bodies can
Yeah.
tune in, and we can resuscitate we can have a lot of it gifted back to us if we'll just listen.
Mm-hmm.
We're not, you know, we're so noisy.
I know. I know. And arrogant. I
I
know.
know it sometimes cracks me up. I joke to my husband because the redwoods are so tall. They're over 300 feet tall, and I feel like an ant walking beneath
Oh
them.
yeah.
But
I was stunned by him. Almost like a Alice in Wonderland kind of thing.
yeah, it
Dropped
feels that
into the
way.
redwoods, It was like, oh my God, this is weird.
I know, and it feels that way. And so the human arrogance that I've been raised with and is embedded in me, like most modern people,
Hmm.
so that we think everything is created here for us and we're the
Right.
center of it. And we were sort of taught that in a way. And then I'll be walking through the forest feeling the size of an ant, and I'll crack up and I'll say to my husband, "Oh my gosh, we're like the ants getting together and thinking this is just all here for us. The ants are the
Right.
center of
Right.
the."
I know.
It's
I
a
know.
perspective change.
Hmm. It is amazing, but we have lost the awe and we've lost the knowledge or the awareness of where we fit. A lot of people believe we've conquered nature. I don't think so.
That won't happen, not with us here, unless we want
Hmm.
robot bodies or something and a
Yeah.
mechanized. But in reality, what we are gifted back, if we can let go of the human hubris for a while
Yeah.
and be humble, what we get, and all those words come from the soil, humus, humble, hubris. If we
Yeah.
can let go of that, we come back to belonging.
Hmm.
And in that belonging, that's where we relax. That's where we have comfort. And that's where our real abundance is.
Right. When we're part of the whole
Yeah.
world, really.
And then we
Yeah.
get the magic back because this place is unbelievably magic. This world that we inhabit is there's beauty in so many forms. It's unimaginable. Imagine inventing a zebra and a pufferfish and a butterfly. It's beyond.
True.
We, you
True. Yeah. I know,
know?
and science does go to nature to try and figure out how do we do this. I think
Yeah.
Velcro came from leaves, right? Seeing the little hooks in some of
Oh,
the
I didn't know
leaves.
that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
where we get our ideas. I mean, it's amazing. There's also something called, and I can't remember the right words, the synchronicity of, but it's an herb thing. And and there's a belief among herbalists that if you have an illness, you'll start to get the weeds that will support you. They'll just start growing in your house. And one herbalist told
Oh,
me that he's watching these weeds grow in his yard, and they support a certain organ. And he's thinking, am I sick? Why are these herbs
wow.
coming up? Because the earth will support us. And then he found out that both neighbors on either side of him had that illness. And it was really going across
Wow.
3 yards, but he's just seeing his own yard. He actually thought, let me go get checked for this organ. You know, he didn't realize that the earth will produce the medicine you need. And
And the
it's
consciousness that knows that because
that's the
the earth is
amazing
part
part.
of the whole.
Yeah.
So you're sick. I often think that nature's more aware of us
Mm-hmm.
than, not that we're not part of nature, but we have consciously separated ourselves,
Right.
our
Cut ourselves
consciousness.
off. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
nature hasn't cut off. Nature knows when we're sick. They've done studies. Trees can figure out if someone's wearing a red or a blue shirt.
How did they
And I don't
figure
have all
that?
the de
Yeah.
I don't know. There must be
Yeah.
something about the light, the way
Well,
the light rays come off.
actually, it would be easy to do. How did they respond when somebody wears blue? How did they respond when somebody wears
Yeah.
red? The
I'd have
same
to look up the
person.
study. I read it
Yeah.
a long time ago, but that one little detail stuck in my
Mm-hmm.
mind because it's so mind-boggling.
Right, right. I mean, we know this through our eyes, but trees don't have eyes as far as we know.
No.
I know. So it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. Yeah, it's pretty
It's a different
amazing.
way of perceiving. But they do perceive, and that is now
Mm-hmm.
known. That's
Right,
science.
right.
And so, and also, as we expand as human beings, our capacity to perceive a lot more with subtle senses exists and can be developed. And just opening up to the idea that there's more ways to perceive than our five
Mm-hmm.
senses is it opens up to the mystery.
What do you think about the Brazilian rainforest?
Um, and how so? I've never been there, but
I haven't either. The fact that it's being, chopped down and
yeah, no,
but
no,
it's not only there. It's we talked about the old growth um, forests and them realizing how important the old growth forests are, what they give above a new growth forest.
yeah.
The difference in those. I can't
Well,
remember if we
they're the
talked off
old
camera
growth.
on this or on camera.
Well, the old growth are a lot more resilient to fires and
Hmm.
droughts and insects and pests and fungi, the bad funguses,
Hmm.
rot. And
But I
they
think
also
they clean
teach
the
and
air
nurture.
more,
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
I
they store more carbon for sure when they're not being burned.
hmm.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, we're just finding out how important these giant old mother trees are to the whole health of the whole forest and the planetary health. And in our species ignorance, it's almost like we've had a war on nature.
But we have. We try to control nature. We try to take it over, and you know, I mean, there was a belief 50 years ago that we beat nature, we controlled nature. And in many ways we are. I mean, we're sitting in warm houses and we're not subjected really to the elements, all of those things. In many
Yeah,
ways we have. And then a
yeah.
tornado or hurricane comes through and realize, maybe not. But
Well, we
yeah,
took it too far. I mean, when our actions are warming the climate at this
right,
rate,
right.
never before seen, then there's the backlash because nature knows balance. Nature's
Mhm.
always going to find homeostasis. And so if we imbalance it one way, then there's going to be a reaction. And that's what we're living with right now. And it's not as comfortable. Nobody likes breathing the smoke.
Right.
Nobody likes water rationing or not even having water
Hmm.
that's fresh and clean.
Or we're getting heat here that I don't ever remember getting for this length of time. I've been in Colorado for about 33 years now. We didn't used to have this kind of heat this long. And then these winds that we're getting lately, I was talking to friends about it. We didn't used to get these kind of winds. It's the kind of winds, open prairie kind of winds. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was talking to my sister on the East Coast, and she's talking about the wind and that it was unusual.
Mm-hmm.
So something's going on there, but I don't know what. I don't know what.
Well, it's their models have been fairly accurate in predicting a lot of the things that have happened, but still, when you destabilize systems, we don't
Hmm.
really know quite how it will play out. And
Right.
it's the best thing. And again, regreening more forests, restoring what we've destroyed
Hmm.
will help. We
Right.
can really buffer this. Um, and and not suffer as much
Hmm.
because this isn't going to be fun. It's already
No, I
not
know.
fun.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I talk
Yeah.
about the heat, and just didn't have that here. It used to
Well,
rain
they did
every afternoon.
oh,
And
I loved
drop
that
that,
when I lived
yeah,
in
and so
Boulder.
yeah, yeah, but that doesn't happen anymore. That's rare. I'm rare to non-existent. It doesn't happen anymore. We're having spring rains. It'll go into June, and then it's done. You know, but it's not every afternoon. Like yesterday, we had huge downpours and lightning storms and all that, but that was one day.
Oh yeah,
It's
it
not
used to
an
be every
extra.
single afternoon. You just knew
Right.
around
And
three
you get
o'clock.
off that mountain. Yeah, you get off that
Yeah.
mountain by 2. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
lightning was so intense. Those storms were so short, but so intense. I can remember unplugging my office, everything in my office, because of the surges, power surges coming through.
Yeah.
And
It was
now,
exciting. It
hmm.
was exciting.
It was.
Hmm.
But, on the East Coast, we'd get a cup of tea, go out on the porch to watch these storms. Here, by the time you made the cup of tea, it was over. It was
I
very
know.
intense and very fast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
often do you go out to, hike or go out to the real woods, not to the local park?
Right. Well, since I fell in love with Summer Tree and was called back, and that was 17, 18 years ago, I've probably averaged 2 or 3 times a week, and
Wow.
for
Yeah.
most of the day. Sometimes in the summer I go camping, so I'll have a, a few days out there, and then I'll be home and get other stuff done, and I won't go out, and then I'll go out again. But and I go out all weathers. I have rain
Hmm.
pants, a rain jacket, and
Right.
um, when I don't go for a while, I crave it. There's just
Really.
a t- I feel so much clearer and so much more content and so much happier and more grounded. One
Hmm.
of the things that really helped me with is just I got to get more in touch with my own core essence and who I was because nobody was watching me. I wasn't performing. I didn't have to try and I
Hmm.
never even knew it, but I was automatically matching energy with people all the time. So I was sort of not being me, and I didn't even know what that was. And
Right.
then being being out there and it's so peaceful, I got to get in touch with the part of me that knows how to be peaceful and knows what it feels like when I'm the most me.
Hmm.
It was sort of like finding out my energetic signature. And
Yeah.
when I'm home for too long, I thought maybe after a while that I would just get so strengthened in it, it would carry over and I would just keep it no matter what. That so far is not my experience. If I don't go for too long for some reason or other,
It goes
I
away.
really feel different. Just like you
Yeah.
said, the power came back on, you got plugged back in, and you're just
Mhm.
idling at a different level. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Hmm. How has it healed you, would you say? You said you're sleeping better, the neck thing, you couldn't turn your head a certain way or it was very stiff and all of
I
that.
feel good. I feel
Yeah.
healthy. I'm the happiest and the healthiest I've ever been, and I just turned 71. So,
Congratulations. Yeah.
thanks. I'm loving my life. I wake up excited about the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I f- I don't know, it's like I'm vibrating in a
Reborn.
different place. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really transformed me. It wasn't instant. It's not like Western medicine. You take a pill and you go from here to there in 2 days. No, it's been a long, gradual process. So when if somebody told me I had to go live in the body I was in when I was 40,
Mm-hmm.
it would feel like putting a straitjacket on. It would feel so constricted compared to
Really?
where I am now. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
That's great. And even though we've talked about the trees and all, this can happen on the beach, on the ocean,
It could
in the
happen in the
desert.
desert with
Yeah.
rocks. You have
Hmm.
beautiful rocks. Somebody could really bond with rocks. I mean, it could happen snowshoeing on a quiet
Right.
mountain,
Right.
a river. It, we just need to let our nervous systems calm down and
Hmm.
reconnect to the natural world. We need to
Yeah.
unplug. We need some time where we're not electronic.
Right. That is hard to find.
It is. And I'm as addicted as anybody. I go scrolling through my phone and
Mhm.
all my social media and
Yeah.
answer all my
Yeah.
emails. And 2 hours go by and I went, oh my gosh, I did that for 2 hours.
I know. I know. These shorts now, the reels, they're killing me.
You
And
know?
I listen to all the comedians and they are funny, but it is like 2 hours in. It's like, oh my God, stop it.
Well, it's okay, but we need to set some time aside that's
Hmm.
not that.
Right.
And,
Right.
even if it's only half a day a week, we need some time to just center into our bodies and
What about the allergies? Because I am hit so hard, in, I'd say in the last couple of weeks, with pollen to the point where,
it's
if I
miserable.
sit, yeah, if I sit out in my yard among trees, um, I am sick as a dog the next day. I mean,
That's
it's
really
really,
hard.
yeah, yeah, and allergies are coming up more. They say that's part of the climate change. That allergies,
True.
yeah. I'm not quite sure I understand that, but I believe them. I mean, I can see it with,
Well, there might be more pollens and things in the air, and
yeah,
certainly our immune systems are all impacted right now.
yeah, yeah.
My daughter has really bad asthma and allergies. I have mild allergies. For me, mine aren't mild enough that going out there has actually helped me because it boosted my immune system, which is a
Hmm.
known thing that nature therapy does. It gives us more T cells and stuff. So over time, that and the nettles grow out there. So I made a nettles tea and quercetin. My daughter is way beyond that point. That's just not going
Right.
to work for her. And that is really a problem. I just don't even know what to tell people who are suffering from allergies. Uh, of course, there's lots of medications, but then there's
They're
all
not
the
doing it.
side
And I
effects.
take
Yeah,
quercetin and nettles and all that, and they're not doing it. But,
they're not
if your
doing it.
daughter, um, if she went out as often as you do, would she acclimate, do you think?
I doubt it. she's a passionate equestrian. Her first word was horse, not mom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, that
anyway,
was
so
personal, yeah. I
but
know.
you know, but so she loves horses, but she's also allergic to horses. And
Oh,
what really
geez,
helped her with the
yeah.
horses is to honestly, when she grew up and got a job and could afford to pay somebody else to help groom,
Mhm.
then and then she only got on to ride, then that really helped. So I think there might be some hacks with nature like that, where
Yeah.
for people that are really suffering from allergies, the best season to do that deep bonding might not be the spring
Mhm.
or whatever season that the things you're allergic to bloom. For you, you might be somebody that winter walks are going to be really wonderful for you. Bundle up and go out in the winter. You'll get
Yeah.
the trails to yourself that way, or
That's
wear
true. Yeah.
snowshoes, you
I
know,
used to do that. Snow. In fact, I have them downstairs still snowshoeing, you
yeah,
know. But now it's gotten so crowded on those.
even in the winter,
Oh, in the
even in,
when snowshoeing, you know,
um,
it's like a group.
it,
It's like a,
yeah,
it's like a tour group.
yeah.
You know, I know. It's kind of
And
weird.
sometimes, and you can follow your tracks back, sometimes 10 yards away off the trail, and you could go
Mhm.
and put down a little, you're not going to last long because it's cold, but you could
Right.
spend 15 minutes or something with a little waterproof jacket that you sit on or something. Well, you'll have waterproof pants if you're snowshoeing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you could actually enjoy that silence just by
Mhm.
a little diversion from the main
Yeah,
track.
cutting off
But
from the group, yeah.
and then um so I imagine you can tune into your own body with what time of year, what time of day, what
Mhm.
seasons, when it lessens for you,
Yeah.
and also where. I mean, it might be easier by a river where
Mhm.
there's not as much pollen maybe, or in the really high country where you're above a lot of it.
No, that's true. Yeah.
You could, I mean, I know it would take a long trek for you, but what about the
Mhm.
Continental Divide? There's not too much pollen up
Right.
there.
Right.
So,
And then I'm
think,
allergic to trees and grass. You know, that's the pollen.
oh,
Yeah.
oh
So,
boy.
I go up above tree level. You know,
Yeah.
that true might work. Yeah.
And that's exalted. I mean,
Hmm.
the Continental Divide, there's nothing like being up there.
I
So
know. And then
my
you bring the
daughter's allergic
bottle
to
of,
grass too. We
yeah,
live where one of the sports here is watching the grass grow overnight. In May and June, it grows so fast you literally see it.
really.
You mow it,
Wow.
and then the next day it's 2 inches tall. Seriously, it just grows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
she was allergic to it, so she was tortured by it and moved to Southern California where there's more pavement.
Hmm.
Honestly, that's what she did. It
Well,
just
to
wasn't
survive. Yeah.
habitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So each person's individual, and we have to work with, and I
With
think
what
the
we have.
stress
Yeah.
level of modern life, the fact that our water and our food generally isn't as clean as it
Hmm.
used to be.
Right.
I don't think our immune systems are probably as up to snuff as maybe our ancestors were
Right. And then we've got that electricity going through us all the time now.
all the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
And I
S-
assume that we'll grow to accept it. I mean, that's one thing about humans. The only reason we're still here is because we're so adaptable. You
Yeah.
know? So I'm assuming we'll adapt. But, boy, when I felt it go away and then felt it come back, I realized the impact of that. And that's a lot of the forest bathing, getting away from that.
It was. And now with 5G and more satellites everywhere, I don't know if you've seen those images of the globe and how completely encircled we are now with these.
No,
They're
I
all
did.
over
Yeah.
compared to how it used to look. Um, I'm not as far away, even in those forests. There are
Hmm.
still places I go where my phone doesn't work, but not nearly as many. And I'm realizing that that part of camping was such a big relief for me, and I'm not
Right.
having it as much. And the
Yeah.
animals aren't having it as much, and
I
the
wonder what's
trees.
happening to the trees and the animals who are more sensitive, really, to this than I
Yeah, I
think we
don't
are.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Hmm.
do know that when I meditate with the old redwoods, well, I got to take this back. You know, I was talking to a really good meditation teacher in the United Kingdom, and I was saying, it's harder for me to meditate. I can still do it, but it takes longer to settle and get into a good,
Hmm.
open attention sort of state. And she said I wasn't the only one, that lots of people were having this experience. That could be related.
Oh, that easily. Yeah, easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
realized that. But the trees are still helping me tremendously, and they do
Hmm.
still seem to channel in this really beautiful
Do you
energy.
talk to them? Do you, when you're out in there,
Somebody asked me
go
that
check with
question.
that? Yeah,
Somebody
check
asked
in.
me that question in a different interview,
Hmm.
and he was saying, "So what do you do? Do you go to the tree and say, 'Tree, I really need help with this, blah, blah, blah?'" And I was about to say no, and then I remembered I had the ferocious insomnia, which I'd been coping with, but occasionally I would take a tranquilizer and get a night's sleep. And I did that for like a decade, and I didn't become addicted. Lowest dose, no more than once or
Right,
twice a
right.
week, blah, blah. Then my youngest daughter burst her appendix and was in the hospital for 10 days, and I
Oh.
was worried she wasn't going to make it. It was really scary. So I just ate them every day.
Hmm.
And by
Yeah,
the end of
yeah.
2 weeks, I, you know, quit eating them and I got all these symptoms. I was a total addict. My skin was crawling, rebound,
Wow.
horrific insomnia. My brain was clicking at me. I'm not kidding you. I was sweating. I was like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
I'm
Yeah,
addicted. I became
yeah,
addicted.
yeah.
So I was just devastated. I was like, how do I? And the doctor was like, well, you can go off of this dose. This is the lowest dose. And I was like, no, I can't go off this dose. So I went to the trees and I was just like, I need help. I'm a wreck here. I'm
Hmm.
really a wreck. Please help. And I was literally talking to the trees, and I had this image of taking these little drops. And I didn't know at that point, I'm not a doctor. I didn't know these drugs came in drops. I went
Hmm.
back to my doctor and I said, do they have drops? They had drops. And I
Wow.
weaned myself off
Little
like
bit at
I
a time.
a drop at a time. Every few days I'd lower the drop by a drop, and that worked, and I got off, and I've never taken another one because that wasn't worth it. But
Right.
wow. And so yeah, I don't know how that tree, I
Knew
don't know
that.
if it
Yeah.
just it could have just connected me to the unified field and the higher intelligence that knows.
Hmm.
I don't know where that information came from, but I did go talk to the tree and ask for help, and I got it.
Wow. Because when I've gone out hiking, I will tune into trees, and they have different personalities.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and some of them are young, and some of them are egos, and some of them are fun. Um, but I've never asked for help. And now that I think about it, of course, why not? You know,
You could ask about the allergy thing, and are
right?
you, and they might just show you where you could go that would be
Hmm.
more comfortable for you. Because there's all
That's
kinds of
true.
places there. Like there's
Yeah,
Red Rocks, maybe that would be a good spot, and that's not too far
yeah.
from you. And the personality thing, I'm getting excited here, so I have to add a little thing. The personality thing within a species, like the redwoods, the
Hmm.
different trees have different personalities. Some don't want to interact with me at all. They're busy
Right,
doing whatever
right.
they're doing, and
Yeah.
it's just like, leave me
You're an
alone.
annoyance. You're an
Hmm.
annoyance and a nuisance,
Right?
and
I might as well
they
be a
don't
termite.
like you. Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't like you. I know.
Others are like that tree that told me to come back. And then if you go into different species of trees, they're very different. The feeling you get in pines is so uplifting and effervescent. That's
Hmm.
not the deep yin peace of the redwoods or the solid strength of the oaks. And
Right.
so it's like a love affair. It's not only that the trees have personalities, but we also each bring our whole beings to the trees. And then there's the inner relationship between both of those things happening at once.
Hmm. Yeah, true. It is a conversation
It's a
between
conversation.
personalities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to revisit that tree many times before it'll talk to you.
It
Yeah.
totally. I
It's
have
like,
ones that they were just beautiful places to sit, but they weren't interested in me at all. And 10 years later, finally the trees uh,
Hmm.
opening up and
Right.
giving
As if you're
a
an
lot.
old friend. Okay.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
took forever. I mean, in tree time, 10 years, a tree that lives
Right.
2 or 3 thousand years old, that's like a breath to them. It's
No, I
nothing.
know. I know. It is. But it is fascinating. You do wonder what is that society? Because that's a different society from ours. You talked like the anthill, like we think
Yeah.
it's all us and we're this little anthill,
Well,
you
the
know.
trees have been here a lot longer than we have, and I
Hmm.
kind of get into the mythological fables of Lemuria when I'm in the redwoods. It feels like in my imagination of this sort of unspoiled Garden of Eden sort of reality where you could understand the songs of the birds and what they meant and
Hmm.
speak to the animals and the whales.
Right.
I always feel like that's sort of a remnant of that that still exists. It's just a
Yeah.
fable, or maybe it was real, and who knows?
I think our ancestors going way back did know the language, of nature, and we don't. I mean, we don't. We're
Right.
separated out. Yeah.
But we can relearn, and all it takes, it's isn't rocket science. All it really takes is spending some time and listening. We're
Hmm.
so busy, and our lives have become so much about doing and this frantic, getting all this stuff done that
Right.
just to take some time out, and if you have a flower in your house that's blooming or in your garden, to just sit and really appreciate the
Hmm.
color and the artistry of it. I was
Right.
just
And the
noticing how
miracle of
fine
it. Yeah.
the miracle. And then that brings us into a quality of presence where if there is a communication for us, we may receive it.
Hmm. Right. Right. I
Hmm.
find it hard. I could do it in the woods, but I find it hard in the city. Even in my own yard. I've tried to talk to my yard and it's deafening silence. you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
and that, yeah. So, and I have to say, it is definitely easier for me in the redwoods than anywhere else
Hmm.
that I go. Um, The other place that I felt similar to was on this Hawaii vacation where we hit it when the whales were there. And every time I'd go snorkeling or
Wow.
swimming, I would hear the whale songs and I was just bathed in it. And I
Hmm.
rocked and held and floating. And
Right.
I almost felt like I could understand
Hmm.
what they were saying. Not quite, but you know how when you've studied a foreign language just a little bit. You don't speak it yet, but you
Right.
kind of, it was that feeling.
Yeah. 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 Like a recognition, but not a knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I know. And
yeah.
and I also think in the city, like my yard, I can't pick up anything. Um, it's almost like you need an immersion, and it's hard to have in a on a city block. A
It
real
is.
immersion. You know.
I think it's a birthright. I think all of our ancestors evolved with wild nature around them.
Hmm.
And I think we need to make this accessible to everyone as a
Right.
birthright. It should just be like clean air, clean water, and some beauty and nature around everyone is a human right.
Right. I mean, clean air, clean water. We're working on.
Yeah, right. And healthy
I know.
food and
Right. Exactly. I
just the
think we're going in the
basics.
wrong direction here.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
maybe that'll wake us up because sometimes that's what
Hopefully.
it takes.
Yeah.
I hope.
Hopefully. Mm.
Yeah, I hope we go the other direction because it's such a miracle to be alive and have a
Hmm.
body and get this experience to be on this planet where life is such a miracle.
Yeah. I think a lot of people bring dogs in, have dogs now for a connection to
I
a,
think
and
that's
to
good.
another species,
Yeah,
you know.
dogs and cats are great
Hmm.
because they're the easiest for us. And everybody, what dog owner or cat owner doesn't see the intelligence in their
Oh,
pet and
yeah.
how, right. You know,
Hmm. And the personalities and the arrogance. The
and they
look
know what's
of
going
you,
on.
you're stupid.
If I think I'm going to go for a walk and I don't have to budge, I can be sitting in my chair, reading my book. I haven't moved a muscle. All I have
Right.
to do is think I'm going for a walk, and the dog runs to the door, wagging the tail.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
They
remember
know.
I remember I had a couple cats and I had a vet that was coming to the house and they got up, that vet had to be a mile away. And they got up and sat by the door and all of that until the vet pulled down the street and then they took off and hid.
And I think
So it
that's
was,
our
yeah,
nature too. See, when
yeah.
we get more in touch with nature, and that includes our own nature, we have those gifts. We have been densed down. It's
Oh, I
not like
know.
there's a
I
few
know.
gifted people out there that are wildly psychic and they can do all this stuff, and the rest of us can't. We're all supposed to be able to do this.
Mhm. I know. I know.
All little kids will know who's safe, you know. You
Mhm.
can, if they haven't been too abused, but most little kids are comfortable around certain people. Animals are. They know who's safe and
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
comfortable.
Unfortunately, we educate that out. Yeah, I know.
Right. To fit in, we've just like, we shut ourselves down so
Right.
much. And that's, I guess, the big gift that this, what a blessing I had in my life to have the freedom and the time and the health and the ability to be able to go spend this time out there and have nature open me up
Hmm.
somewhat. I mean, I'm
Right.
on a journey. I'm only at the beginning of it, but I found that that reality is a lot less limited than I thought.
Oh, I know. We're so ignorant.
I
We are so ignorant.
know.
I
Right?
know. I know.
So,
Well, on that note, I think we have to wrap it up. I've kept you too long already, but I want to know everything.
I know this was
So,
fun. Thank you.
yeah, great. So, where can everybody get your book and get hold of you and maybe, connect with you directly?
Okay, Sacred Forest Bathing is available to be ordered through local bookstores, all the normal online vendors, Inner
Amazon, all that.
Traditions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's published right now. It's out there right now.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Inner
great.
Traditions came out with it. And you can find out more at my website, www.ellenddavidson.com.
Hmm.
So,
And we'll have all
yeah,
those links too.
thank
We'll
you.
put that out. Thanks so much
Yeah,
for being on the show. I've really enjoyed it. I have to
me
get out of
too.
the house now.
Yeah, lovely to meet you, Barb.
It was
And
great meeting
yes, it
you.
was really a fun conversation.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay.